Hello and welcome to Insights, the podcast with your host, Joe Pane. Join me in this deep exploration of our personal journeys from ambition to meaning, where we stop living life fast and start living life deep. This is a journey of waking up and realizing that our lives have never been about us, but about others. True success leaves positive ripple effects on other souls. I believe that success needs to be redefined from our own personal ambitious endeavors to be redefined as the value that we leave and give to others around us. Join me now as we begin this journey to deeper connections, even more fulfillment, some fun, curiosity, life, love, and all good things. Your deeper journey from ambition to meaning starts right now. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 27. It's Joe here. I hope you're all doing great. And as this is a special podcast today because I'm recording this right on ANZAC Day. It's literally Saturday, April 25 at the time of this recording. And I thought it was perfect timing because other than the obviousness of the fact that it's ANZAC Day, it was really special and really unique this morning for the four of us, Silvana and I and our two sons. We did a dawn vigil. We took our candles out to the front of our house, and I noticed there's a church a couple of doors down from our house, and there was a couple of elderly parishioners there holding candles, which was just phenomenal. And it was actually quite moving. It was very moving. It actually drew me to tears because it's just a reminder of so many, how things can change so much in a heartbeat. But I was also reflecting because I had just been listening to the Prime Minister's address on the ABC on TV, would have been just after 5:30 a.m. So we got out there at about 10 to 6. And anyway, but at 5:30ish, the Prime Minister was delivering a speech from the National War Memorial, of course, in Canberra. And just a stark reminder, like he was talking about 1919 and how, of course, people were still recovering from the First World War. The First World War went, of course, for, 4.5 years. And 4.5 years. And then the Spanish flu came along in 1918 and went for 2 years until December 1920. Killing an estimated 50 million people and 14,000 Australians amongst that 50 million. And I was just thinking to myself, I know that some people are doing it tough in this country, but what does that actually mean? I know that some people are doing it tough in terms of perhaps dealing with the virus themselves directly, and I say this with the deepest of respect and with the greatest of sensitivity, so please do not misunderstand me. But we're talking about a minority that is so small in the contrast of our population. I'm finding that my tolerance for people whinging, working from home and working in physical isolation and how they're getting cabin fever and complaining about all that, I am finding more ridiculous by the bloody minute. And I don't mean to be emotional on my podcast. I don't like to be emotional on a podcast, but I just wanted to share with you my inner thoughts here. That it's called Insights, So I guess, what do they say? It's my party and I can cry if I want to. So, but this morning as we stood there, in the dark, and it was beautiful because, cars driving by, there wasn't that many. It was only a handful of cars would slow down just in acknowledgement. And I was just thinking, just imagine living in that time in 1919, because the Prime Minister made that point. He said, just like we are today, in 1919, there were no big gatherings of people, whether, there was social distancing back then. But the point is that a lot of people were in isolation, not because of what the government was saying, but because it was a true pandemic. People were dropping dead every hour of every day. I mean, phenomenally, just incredibly. So I was trying to get my head around living in 1919. Like you would have known so many people that would have died in the war, and of course ANZAC Day is a precious day on the Australian calendar. where we deeply reflect, and I hope we all deeply reflect on, yes, the contributions, but more importantly, or equally as importantly, what people went through, just to remember them for their courage. I mean, no words can come close to describing what the men and women of that era went through. I mean, imagine being involved in a world war for 4.5 years. Imagine being an Australian where you're in battle, at risk, like genuine, incredible risk for 3 years, 4 years. My historical facts might be inaccurate, but I think a lot of the Australians in the Gallipoli era were involved for like 3 years. Now imagine being in that 3 year period, or even in the 4.5 years of the World War, where you're in that tunnel. You don't know that it's going to be 4.5 years. You don't know how long it's going to go for. And then as they're starting to come out of it, as the war starts to settle and I guess in a way, peace begins to be a reality. The end of it becomes a reality, and then you've got this incredible pandemic of the Spanish flu killing all those people. I mean, incredible. I mean, that there was an approximate sort of guesstimation of 500 million cases. A third of the world's population was affected, and here we are in 2020. And I know that we're all hanging to get back to our lives. I know that we want the footy to come back, and we want to be back in the gym, and we want to perhaps be back in the office, or, whatever it is for you and me, we want to get things back to normal. I get all that. But gee, I got to tell you, my patience, tolerance, kindness, courtesy, compassion, understanding, all these things, it's like, really, what is our problem? And I say this I'll say it again. I'm saying this in the deepest of respect and the greatest of sensitivities, because I know personally of two families that I know personally who are going through some very hard times, and I'm not talking economically. One of which who's, this person that we know whose daughter, only 13 years of age, was discovered in bed one morning only a few weeks ago. She was dead, and we don't know why that happened or how that happened, but that's beyond tragedy, And then a dear friend of mine called me yesterday to share with me how his ex-wife's 42-year-old brother, so his ex-brother-in-law, died only a couple of days ago from leukemia at the age of 42, leaving behind a wife and a 10-month-old baby. So, I mean, there's lots of stuff going on, right? And I mean, if you and I'll speak for myself, I have completely stopped in its tracks whinging at all about can't have my running group, all these minor, ridiculously superficial things that I find myself, in the recent past, in the last few weeks, getting mildly frustrated by. It's like, are you kidding? Man, go back 100 years and just see what you had to face with then. So, and this is also a stark reminder as well about how life can change in a heartbeat. I mean, that woman that we know waking up in the morning to go and see why her daughter wasn't getting up from bed, shaking her, going there and discovering that she's not breathing anymore. Her life will never be the same again. Her life will never be the same again. So this is another angle, perspective, way of looking at things where, gratitude is everything. Like, to just be appreciative of the fact that we can live in this country and have all the opportunities that we have. I mean, I just came back from a run as well, so it was a nice long run for a couple of hours, and it's taken its toll on me. I'm a little bit buggered from it, to be frank. Like, I was tired, but I found myself, there was nothing in me that was whinging about it. It was just observing the fact that I'm tired. It's okay, that's a fact. You ran 24 kilometers. What do you expect? So that's okay. But I didn't go down the whiny path of like, oh, my hammies, oh, this, oh, that. There was none of that. Coming fresh off holding this beautiful vigil with my gorgeous family and these two elderly folk in front of the church, as I said, a couple of doors down from our house, was just a massive reminder of what matters in life and how precious our lives are. And, and think of it this way, guys. Think of it this way. Every breath that we breathe, like the breath right now as you're listening to this, the next breath that you'll be taking is a brand new breath that has never been breathed before. It's amazing. There is so much to be amazed by. So much to be amazed by. So, it's I just wanted to tune in today. I didn't want to lose the feeling that I've connected with today to record this podcast later in the week instead of, I just wanted to get this message over to you today because I just, and I don't even know what my message is to you. Other than it was just deeply moving this morning, standing there with my boys. I'm proud of my boys because there was no whining or whinging at all. Getting up at 5:30 is like they just we've been going to dawn services now, for about 4 or 5 years straight now with them, and they just have a healthy respect, even though they've got no clue. I guess I don't have a clue either in terms of what really happened back in the 1915, 16, 17, 18. And all they know is that there was this terrible thing that happened, and it's because of what happened back then that changed the trajectory of the world and affecting us in a wonderful, positive way, where we're reaping the benefits of all of these situations that happened back then. And all, my God, every time we went to a service, it was every year we would hear a story of a different person, people that were somehow related to someone in our local area. We'd go to a local service here in Melbourne, and just mind-blowing. It's just an annual reminder of what's possible in the human spirit, of what's possible in the, this mind over matter business, and what's possible when we make our lives about service. It's about service. It's always been about service. As I often share in my trainings, the only reason why a cell in any living organism exists is because it's contributing to the whole. And the moment it stops contributing to the whole, it gets annihilated by the particular organism or that particular, organ or whatever that cell is part of. And as human beings, you and I are like cells. We're a cellular component of the human condition, of humanity. And the people who suffer emotionally from all these different emotional health issues. Now, I'm about to make a reasonably strong statement, so please forgive me if I offend anyone. But I know that not in all cases, let me be very clear, but in a lot of cases where people have got emotional health issues, their focus is purely on themselves. That's not the case in all cases. Of course it isn't. But I find that when we make our lives about others, when we're contributing, doing something for somebody else unconditionally with no expectation of return, when we're really focused on service, and when we're tuned in that way, our lives have meaning. The only meaning you'll ever find is in service to other people. And I love how on this podcast, I think on the bookends that are recorded, that are automated on each of these episodes by memory. I haven't listened to it for a while, but I think by memory I say that this is about redefining success. The success is defined by the value that you've been to somebody else. And these people, these amazing people in the First World War were impeccably successful based on that definition. So even though, of course, a lot of them died, right? So I don't mean to be heavy on you, but I thought it was just an important conversation to touch base with you today and just share some thoughts, some insights into that. And I'm proud of my sons not whining or whinging or carrying on at all, not even one bit, not one bit. As soon as I gave them a little gentle shake this morning, they just got up, got dressed. We lit our candles. We went out the front. I've got to tell you guys, it was strange. It was weird. I'll be frank, I felt really silly walking out the front with some candles where there's no one else, just us. And then the silliness was replaced by deep respect, and the deep respect evolved into this ineffable feeling, this indescribable emotional intensity of incredible gratitude for what we have and what we're there for in that moment. Those 20 minutes or half hour, whatever it was that we stood out there for. It was just the extreme least that we could do to pay our homage to those before us. So, in my heart, I say a prayer for everyone that is suffering tragedy. These two people that we know, they're not close friends of ours. They're people that we just simply know who, my mate's ex-brother-in-law at 42 years of age passing away, and this lady's daughter at the age of 13 passing away. That's tragedy. That is true tragedy. And so prayer goes out to them, So anyway, guys, I'm going to start to wrap up this conversation right now today. And for what it's worth, I hope this was worth your 15 minutes of your life listening to this. And if it wasn't, forgive me. So, I'll look forward to tuning in with you next week for the next episode. And I'll be sure that I'll have a different energy for you next time we hop in together, huh? Okay. So all my very best and love to you all, and enjoy, if that's the right word. I don't know if that's the right word, but just have a deep appreciation for every breath, every moment, because life can change in a heartbeat. And just as it can change for the worse, guys, it can also change for the better. And in the immortal words of Wayne Dyer, all change is only one thought away. So I'll leave you with that thought, huh? All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for tuning in. Deeply appreciate it. And I'll see you next week. We'll see you, you know what I mean? I'll tune in with you next week as we continue our journey moving forward in this wonderful lifetime that we share together. Okay. Talk soon. Thanks, guys. Bye for now. I'm Joe Pane, and you've been listening to Insights, the podcast. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. You can now follow my insights on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to being with you again very soon in the next episode of Insights, the podcast.